Hello, I'm sitting here on the back porch of my house, and what was supposed to be a Zoom video interview with a woman who had COVID-19 and whose husband passed away from COVID-19. However, at the last minute, she called me and said that she wanted to bow out of doing the personal interview. She wants her story out there, but she didn't want her name and face out there yet. And I have to say, I don't blame her. The fact remains that this is, and I took some rudimentary notes. I'm a very bad note taker. I don't know if you can see this, but this was scratch paper that I jotted as fast as I could some of the things she was telling me. But basically, what she said was, it was too new, it was too fresh, and their family hadn't even had a chance to get together and grieve or mourn the loss of her husband yet. And so until it becomes something that they can all get together on, she didn't really want to put her face and her name out there yet. So I totally respect that. But she still wants her story to be told. So I feel grateful and honored that she's allowing me to tell her story and she wants the story out there. I'm also not going to focus too much on her husband and his battle with COVID because she really doesn't want her husband's legacy to be about the man, that he was the man who died from COVID. He has too much, she says, to offer the world, and that should not be his legacy. So I also want to honor that completely. So I'm going to pick up the day that her husband, the day that she had to drop her husband off at the hospital. So here's a horrible thought, but when you have a loved one who has COVID-19 or the coronavirus, and you have to take them to the hospital, you don't get to go in there with them. You don't get to see them in the hospital. You have to drop them off at the door. Now, the one blessing that she said was that there were two nurses that greeted her at the door who could not have been more loving and accepting. And the way she put it to me, they were beyond their, I'm looking for the exact quote on my scratch pieces of paper, but she said they went beyond their job description, and they made her feel honored. They made her husband feel honored and respected, and they didn't make her feel, or him feel, like they were lepers. Of course, they're in their full, full decked out gear and stuff, but they made her feel comfortable, and they put him at ease and they put her at ease as much as you can when you're dropping somebody off at the hospital and you don't know if you're ever going to see them again, a loved one. So I can't imagine her mindset, but I think you might be able to put yourself in her shoes when you hear that she said she did not leave the hospital grounds. She stayed in the parking lot for 2 hours. She sat in her car making phone calls to family members and stayed in the parking lot for 2 hours. So also, because he had tested positive, the health department got involved, and he had to list everybody that he had come in contact with for the previous 21 days. So they contact everybody and all that. She was eligible for a test because, well, she's the spouse, and of course he had contact with her, but really she was only eligible because of that fact and the fact that she had one symptom, which I didn't even know was a symptom, but she had a sore throat. And the sore throat, in combination with her husband testing positive for COVID, allowed her to be tested. So she was tested the very next day for COVID, for coronavirus, for COVID-19. But in the meantime, her husband is in the hospital. She's sitting in a parking lot for 2.5 hours, 2 hours. She doesn't know what to do. She's making phone calls. She's processing this. She doesn't want to leave the grounds because he's mere steps away, but she can't be with him. She finally gets up the gumption and leaves the hospital parking lot and goes home, and she does what she called, and I never heard it called this before, but she does what she calls a death clean. She cleans her house. She stays up all night, by the way. She stays up all night. She said there was so much adrenaline running through her body, but she says she cleans her house so intensely that you just can't clean it anymore from top to bottom. And also, while she's doing that, and while she's up, and while her adrenaline is running, she's knowing she's going in for a test, but she's thinking she's going to be positive. She doesn't know she's positive, but she thinks she's going to be positive because she had been caring for him. So she also, and this is heart-wrenching to me, she not only in the storm of cleaning, she starts taking stock of everything in her house. She takes a video camera out and starts videoing things like the furniture and telling her children, oh, this couch came from so-and-so. This dad made. This. I mean, I can't even imagine. And then on top of that, she was making sure she got the will together and the power of attorney together. And she's sticking Post-it notes on everything. So when her family comes, because remember, her mind, she doesn't know what's happening. Her husband's in the hospital. She's getting tested the next day for COVID, so she's thinking she'll be in the hospital too. But she's putting notes on everything, and she's making sure that when people come to her house, when her children come to her house, they're going to know what everything meant to them throughout their life, where the important papers are, the insurance papers, and the power of attorney, and the will, and So this is what's going on in this woman's mind all night. And I just can't even imagine it. And then over the course of the next day or two, they take her husband to another hospital in a neighboring town. So that brings another issue up. When he passed away, she also didn't know if his death is counting in this county or in the next county. And she still doesn't know. She doesn't know if his death counted for our county or the next county over. But anyway, I'm sorry I digressed there for a minute. I just find that fascinating. But when she tests positive, she then has to also tell the health department the 21 people she's come in contact with. And really, she only came in contact with a handful of people during that time because she had been caring for him. And to the best of her knowledge, none of those people tested positive. So that's a good sign. But she actually never did develop any symptoms. That sore throat, and that was it. But she was COVID-19 positive, which means she could have transmitted it. Anyway, the day she found out she was positive, just a few hours later, she got a phone call from the hospital in the next county that said her husband had taken a turn for the worse. And that wasn't looking good. So I can't even imagine her mindset there. She just got a phone call saying she's positive and her husband is taking a turn for the worse. I just can't. And I want to say this, that this woman had the strength of an angel to be able to relay this story to me. At any rate, knowing she's positive and now knowing her husband has made a turn for the worse, that was at 8 o'clock at night. And 3 o'clock in the morning, the hospital called her back. But, oh, I have to tell you this. This is nuts. This is just crazy. So at 8 o'clock at night, when they tell her that he has making a turn for the worse, the nurses, manage to put her on a video call with her husband and the minister who administered last rites. So she is on a video call watching her husband having last rites administered to him, so she could be part of the ceremony and at least feel like she's part of it. And now if that doesn't break your heart, I don't know what will. I mean, think about it. If you have a child, a spouse, a loved one that you can't be there with, and you are watching them being administered last rites on a video, wow. So that's one of the things about COVID. It's just, that's one of the scary things about it. Anyway, a few hours later, after he was administered last rites, at 3 o'clock in the morning, she got a call from the hospital and said, if you can get here, we're going to let you in to see him. So naturally, she got up there, and she was greeted at the door, again, by nurses, and she was given the full regalia of PPE, personal protection equipment. She had the cap. She had the N95 mask. She was double gloved. She had the gown, and she had a face shield. And she said when she was putting it on, she was hyperventilating and sweating because it was just all so much stuff on her. But she did make the nurses laugh a little bit, because even at that time she said, putting all this stuff on makes me have to want to go to the bathroom. Now think about it. That doesn't seem like, maybe that's not so funny, but think about it. If you go to the bathroom, all that stuff has to get taken off, and you have to get a whole new set of all that stuff to put back on. Needless to say, I don't think she went to the bathroom. But she also wasn't allowed to touch her feet to the ground of the hospital. So they had her in a wheelchair. And until she got into his ICU room, which also I want to back up and say, she said was incredible, that the hospital had a whole entire dedicated ICU unit that had teams of infectious disease control specialists, teams of cardiologists, teams of respiratory doctors, and it was like sealed off. So she got wheeled into like a room and then into another room. And so the airflow was not allowed to transmit from the ICU room that he was in to the hallway outside. And it wasn't until she was fully wheeled into his ICU room that she could actually stand up and put her feet on the floor. She was able to spend a few hours with him and sat there with him as he passed. So that was one of the bigger blessings of it, because that in itself was a complete miracle, according to her. That just doesn't happen. So, but I'll tell you right now, the only time when she was relaying this story to me that she actually welled up with emotion and tears was when she talked about the healthcare workers. Because she said that the love and respect and the way they honored her and her husband was overwhelming. And when he passed and they said a prayer, that everybody bowed their head. When she was leaving the hospital, they lined up and they blew her kisses. I mean, I do hope one day that you can hear her words for herself, because it chokes me up to think about her being wheeled out of the hospital, leaving her husband, and having the medical staff like honor her. And one of the things she wants to be made very clear is that we have to stay healthy, because these people are putting their lives on the line for us. And many of these hospital workers aren't having a family life right now, aren't having any time with their families, because they're putting themselves in harm's way to save us. So we have to be mindful. We have to be very mindful of that. This is not the flu. This is something totally different, and we're still getting a grasp on it, and we're still trying to learn what this is. I'm sorry I keep looking down at my notes. I want to make sure that I share her story and give it honor. But the one thing, I mean, honestly, that she did want to be made clear of was how wonderful each hospital and their staff treated her and her husband. And she could not say that enough. I mean, she really wanted to get that point across. The other thing was, so she's tested positive. So now she gets to go home to nobody, nothing, no ceremony, no funeral, nothing. No family getting together with her, no casseroles, no churches, no people around her, and deal with this by herself. So naturally, she wants to know if she's COVID-19 positive. So she starts pushing for them to retest her to see if she's done. And they're saying, well, we assume you're good because it's been 2 weeks. We assume you're good because it's been 2 weeks. But she's like, how do you assume anything? We don't know this virus yet. And, you know, when you say only like 1% of the people die, how did I get the unlucky jackpot and have my husband be one of them? So she's not trusting this virus, and she wants to know that she's healthy before she sees her family, because she loves her family, and she doesn't want to do this to healthcare workers any more than has to be done also. But the problem was she kept being told there wasn't enough tests to retest her. So there's not enough tests to retest her. So that was very frustrating. And she kept pushing it and pushing it and trying and trying. And then finally the governor just recently said that everybody can get a test. So she challenged that, and they challenged her back, actually. And they said, no, we mean people that are first-time testers. And she said, that's not what he said. He said anyone. And she pushed it and pushed it and pushed it until she finally got the test. And she still doesn't know if she's COVID at this time, if she's COVID-19 positive, or if the virus has left her system, because she has to wait these 5 days. The first test her and her husband got were through the state, and that test only took 48 hours. But but the independent lab that she had to go through for this test takes 5 to 6 days. So she's still in the waiting period to know if she's COVID-19 positive or negative. And if she's negative, her and her family can more than likely get together on some limited basis to grieve the loss of their husband and father together. And I want that for them, because that's an important part of the whole process. But so I hope you understand why she at the last minute said she wanted to do this first with her family before she shared it with the world. And I hope you can respect that. I certainly do. There's so much more to this story. I don't even know how to explain it, and I can't express it. I'm not doing it the justice it deserves. I'm not as good an auditory storyteller as I am a writer, so I think I'm going to have to sit down and write this story and understand why it was given to me. And I mean, I did ask God to help me get the word out. I didn't expect to get a call from somebody who was COVID-19 positive in our community. And by the way, just today, our governor, as I was getting ready to do this interview with this lady, came out and said, I think May 1st we open our state back up. But in our community, 5 more people tested positive. We're up to 35 now. And just to put that in perspective for you, Buncombe County, Asheville, North Carolina, just over the mountain, has 261,000 people in that county. 261,000. And it has 45 people that have tested positive. Our community, we have 69,000. They have 200,000 more people than us, and they only have 10 more positive test results. So when you look at the statistics like that, our little county has quite a few positive tests. I don't know why that is. Perhaps we need to reevaluate how we're looking at this. And certainly after speaking with this lady today, I have definitely taken stock in how I've been looking at it. So, long story short, this COVID is not for the faint at heart. If one of you get it, you could be torn away from each other. You might not see each other out of a hospital setting or at the hospital door. That might be the last time you see your loved one. Healthcare workers are putting their lives on the line for us. We need to be more mindful for them. We need to take care of ourselves. We need to think of others. Mask up. Just take care. Love one another while we have each other. And the more I find out and the more I know, the more I'll share. Until then, Life is mysterious. And just go kiss those family members. God bless.